I'll get ready because we've got some rain moving up the coast and there's some thunderstorms in the mix too. Joe Rayo is going to be checking out all the radars as this latest storm system um, heads up to the northeast and we get into some wind on Friday. Meanwhile, it's not only bone dry along the Gulf Coast, but it's been a case of fire and rain I'm sorry, fire and ice in some places. And we'll talk about that. The weekend, there's severe weather risk across the deep south again this weekend. That's all coming up tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which you can support by simply doing your Amazon shopping by using our referral link at the top of the chat board or on the descriptor to this podcast. And it keeps the show mostly commercial free. You don't see any ads while we're doing the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. So just search and shop, and Amazon will send us a little bit of coin for sending you there. It's out of their pocket, not yours, so it doesn't cost you a cent. And we appreciate those of you who have supported the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast by shopping on Amazon. So here we are. It's a Thursday. Another week has gone by. It is spring, so the whole winter's gone. I know. I've come to this realization over the last, I don't know, week or two, because you sit around sometimes when there's not much going on, and you just sort of think about things. I don't know about you, Joe, but it really does feel like somebody's got the foot on the accelerator when as far as time is concerned, because it just seemed like it was Thanksgiving. It just seemed like it was just Christmas, and now we're almost done with the first quarter of 2025.
Indeed, everything is just flying along, and we are looking now at springtime weather, I guess. But before we get into spring, we do have some cool downs to go through as we close out this month of March. And as you mentioned, Joe, some wet weather coming our way for overnight. I should point out that I tried getting into the radar that I normally use, and for whatever reason, they're saying it's taking too much time and they're not allowing me in, or I
Oh,
can't get in. So I'll have to use a different type of radar when we talk about the radars
that's
tonight.
fine. That's fine. By the way, I just want to correct something from last night. If you remember, we showed the satellite loop, and there was some stuff that looked like it was on the radar across central Pennsylvania into southwestern New York, and you saw it on the satellite loop. And I mentioned that it was some blow off stuff from the system in the west, and that was actually turned out to be partially true. What that was dust. It was an area of dust from all the dry air that's been covering not just the South, but the plains, and areas of dust were being spun up. Remember, I pulled up that dust storm warning the other night, and apparently some of that dust kind of was concentrated enough that it just blew away to the northeast and went through central Pennsylvania and upstate New York. So go
That's
figure.
pretty amazing.
It did look really strange on the radar. I thought it was maybe like flocks of birds or something.
Migrating birds, because this is, after all, the time when they're coming back from the south. So,
Right.
it's we've seen that in the fall. I don't think we see it too much in the spring for whatever reason. But in any case, now we've discovered the cause of the mystery, so to speak.
Yep. Welcome tonight to everybody on the chat board and those of you watching in the background on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We're here Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m., which means we will not be here tomorrow or Saturday, but we will be back Sunday night. Hope you had a great day and hope you have a good weekend. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss us. Make sure you turn your notifications on. Of course, if you like the show, hit the like button. And just one last note before we get going here. I mentioned yesterday and the day before, I did have a colonoscopy this morning. Uh, and uh,
I hope Mr. Fairchild, who posted just a few minutes ago, said, "So why was the show cut so short last night?" Well, there you go. That was the reason. You know,
exactly. So anyway, I had I had a colonoscopy, which I get I used to get it, I was getting it every year since I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease about 4 years ago. So I got two back to back, and then my Crohn's improved considerably. So they went to I could skip a year. So this was 2 years since my last colonoscopy. And my doctor told me today, at least for, I mean, it seems that the Crohn's disease is in full remission. It's gone. There was no sign or trace of it. So I'm a happy camper. I'll be a little happier when I find out whether my health insurance is paid for everything. But there's a bit of a hitch in there, which I don't want to get into. But no matter. It is, it's the outcome of the medication I was on and just making sure I'm just a little bit more careful with what I eat, and everything is good. So I'm happy. And by the way, it was fast. I got there at 7:30, Joe. I was out. I was done and out by 9:15.
Great. Very,
Yeah,
very good. In
yeah.
and
It
out.
in and out,
And
very
the fact that you were
fast.
polyp free should mean that the insurance cost should be low, I would think.
Yeah, well, that's not the issue, though. I'll tell you about it later.
I'm wondering
Okay.
why. I'm wondering why on the chat board, unless he got the Joes mixed up. Jason Fox said, "Congrats, Joe R." I don't know what the congrats is for me. Actually, it should be for Mr. Chiaffi. So
All right. Well, let's see. R and C are not close together on the typewriter, so we can't say it was a. Oh, he says he's sorry he mixed it up. No worries. Gosh, it's all good. All right, let's
I
look
had
at.
mine 2 weeks. I had mine 2 weeks ago. So you congratulate me for that one. So
Yes, exactly. And you scoped clean. All right, let's look at what's going on the watches and warnings that map, and there really isn't a whole lot. But I was talking about fire and ice in the deep south, and that's because you have some areas that have red flag warnings and frost advisories and freeze warnings up. So there you go. The humidity levels today actually are a little higher. It is because we did have a little bit of rain last night, but yesterday we were down in the 20% range all day, and that's when it's that dry here, especially if there's any kind of wind. There's always fire risks. Things really do dry up in a hurry, and these low dew points are not good. And we do have areas in the plains. You see, there's area red flag warnings up. There's some wind advisories up in the Appalachians. There are wind advisories up for northeastern Pennsylvania for some counties there, including Scranton. But at least for now, I didn't see anything up for New Jersey, Long Island, the Hudson Valley, or southern New England. We do have dense fog advisories up for Long Island at the moment, and a few winter weather advisories up in the Northwest, and even a few winter storm warnings going on in the Cascades. So here's your satellite loop, and you can see on the loop that there's actually some lightning strikes going on, or at least there were some lightning strikes that went on in around the Washington D.C. Baltimore area, and now those lightning strikes have kind of disappeared because I think they've probably entered the zone of the marine layer. But the cold front is pretty obvious on this. So is the upper trough that's to the west, down the Ohio and Tennessee Valley and swinging eastward. More energy coming in at the Pacific Northwest, and dry air in between. So it's RRs are now. We got RRs, Joe. Rayo's radars. That is it is now your turn.
all right. Well, as I said, I'm working in a different mode tonight for radar, but I think you can probably see or get a good view of what we have on the screen for the moment. This is from the National Weather Service office over in Philadelphia or Mount Holly, and you can see that. Whoops! Sorry about that. I did not mean to do that. For whatever reason, I hit the wrong
You
button.
hit the wrong button.
I hit the wrong button, so I'm going to have to start all over again. So I beg your forgiveness on that. Let me just go back to where I was
No need, no need.
and to do that, and now go over to Zoom and to share and do this and do that and boom, there we go. I hope that comes out. Now, what I was trying to do is I was trying to enlarge this a little bit, but it really doesn't do all that good because it enlarges the screen, but the actual radar remains pretty much the same. This is from the National Weather Service office at Mount Holly, and you can see that. Actually, this is not Mount Holly. This is
Upton.
Upton. Let me
Upton.
Mount Holly. There we go. There we go. And you can see that there's a fairly broad area in moving into Delaware and also into the eastern sections of Maryland, slowly working its way up through southeastern Pennsylvania of yellows and reddish hues, and that indicates moderate to even heavy showery activity. At the moment, New York City is still dry. Whatever you see here is probably Virg. I can tell you that where I am in Putnam Valley, we're not seeing anything yet, but eventually, certainly it looks like at the speed that this is moving, that New York City and portions of northern Jersey will be getting into some wet weather within the next hour or so. And then as we move on into the latter part of the night, say 9, 10 o'clock, it will be spreading across Long Island and also across the rest of the tri-state area, the Hudson Valley. And again, this area down here is looking rather significant. There may even be some rumbles of thunder or flashes of lightning associated with that. So for a short while tonight, I would say sometime between, let's say, midnight and 2, 3 in the morning, it'll come down pretty good. I'm thinking, Joe, that we'll be seeing anywhere from a quarter to a half an inch, maybe a little more here and there, but it does not look like a tremendous amount. And it's moving fast enough so that it probably will be all over in most areas by daybreak tomorrow morning. And one thing that impressed me when I looked at the guidance this afternoon was the extremely sharp line of clearing that's going to work its way through here probably around 6, 7, 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, where we'll go from rather cloudy to bright and sunny blue skies, which will stay with us probably through the balance of the day tomorrow. Let's go further south. This is down toward Dover, Delaware, and you can see again all of this area of yellow and orange and red, indicative of that one area of moderate to heavy rainfall, which again is working its way slowly up to the north and east. Now, it should be pointed out that we have a cold front that's going to work its way through here. The front looks like it's just to the west, and then it kind of rolls on down into Delaware and Maryland. And on the front, there is a wave of low pressure that is developing, and that wave is going to be responsible for the enhancement of the precipitation during the overnight hours tonight. As that wave rolls along the front and passes almost directly over the New York metropolitan area along about midnight or 1 a.m., what's going to happen is, number one, we'll get a heavier dose of precipitation. Number two, the winds, which ahead of the front have been blowing out of a southerly or south-southeasterly direction, are going to shift rather radically into the north and northwest and increase. We're in fact looking for winds after midnight tonight, sustained 10 to 20, maybe gusting to over 30. And as the storm, the wave of low pressure, moves away to the north and east, up toward Cape Cod, and by tomorrow morning into the down east Maine area of the northeast of New England, that storm, as it intensifies, will cause the pressure gradient to tighten up. And we are going to have gusty, strong northwesterly winds tomorrow. Again, perhaps falling just short of criteria for warning or advisory criteria, but still, we'll talk about winds of 20 and 30 miles per hour sustained with gusts to over 45 miles an hour. So it's going to be a windy day tomorrow. It'll be a bright day, a beautiful blue sky, lots of sunshine, but it'll also be cooler, mid to low 50s, and with the way the winds will be blowing, probably it'll feel like it's in the 40s. So we just have to get through this round of rain tonight. Let's go further south. Let's go down to, well, let's see. We can go to, this is Raleigh, Durham, I believe, and you can see how if the storm itself is located up in Maryland and Delaware, so you can see the trailing edge of the front working its way now across eastern sections of Virginia and also North Carolina, and probably in the next 2 or 3 hours, this area of precipitation will move off of the outer banks of North Carolina. Here is Cape Hatteras, and you can see that line, again, the cold front working its way again pretty quickly to the east, and again, it will probably be offshore by or soon after midnight. And again, it all leads up to that one wave of low pressure that is developing just off to our south and to our west. We'll go a little bit further south. Um, this is down toward the area around Myrtle Beach and South Carolina. You can see the wet weather is already offshore there. And again, all of this will be offshore. And after it moves on out, it looks like we'll stay dry right on through not only tomorrow, but Saturday and on into Sunday as well. There's another weak weather front. They'll move through here probably, I think, Saturday night, but with very little, if any, significant precipitation. Next round of any significant rain after tonight probably will not come until Monday. So we've got a few days of dry weather after we go through the wetness that we're going to see overnight tonight. Let me just move forward to the north and east again. Um, I'm not used to this, but here is New York City. And as you can see, points north and east of New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, they're all in the zone of dry weather. Well, maybe there's a couple of renegade light showers. I'm not even sure whether or not this is reaching the ground or not. But in any case, all of this area here probably will not be getting basted or wet until probably after midnight and toward daybreak tomorrow morning, about the same time that we here in the New York metropolitan area will be clearing out. And no, I don't think with the rapid turnaround into the northwest, obviously a shot of somewhat colder air coming in, but no, I don't think that any of the lingering precipitation toward daybreak tomorrow morning will change over to any kind of snow or snow shower or whatever. Not You're not even going to get a cheap thrill in that regard. So anyway, there you go, Joe.
All right. And here's the larger view of the radar from coast to coast, and there's some heavier precip that's coming into the Pacific Northwest. We've got some scattered stuff across Montana. Otherwise, it's fairly quiet, just about everywhere else through the U.S. Now, no severe weather is being forecast for the next 2 days, but we do have SPC actually has the northern edge of general thunderstorms to about New York City and across from there northwestward toward Binghamton. That's where the line is, the northern flank. The southern flank cuts off in eastern South Carolina, and then that's pretty well going to be done before too long. And we have an area of potential general thunderstorms up from northern Idaho across into southern Montana. I'm going to jump into day three, which is Friday into, I'm sorry, Saturday into Sunday morning, where we have a marginal risk of severe weather developing for eastern Kansas, a good chunk of Missouri, northwestern Arkansas, and northeastern Oklahoma. And on the long range now, it started 3 days ago on the day seven forecast, is now in the day four forecast, and it has been expanded. The Storm Prediction Center has a rather large area of potential 15% risk or slight risk from eastern Texas across much of almost all of Louisiana, except the southeast, southern Arkansas, almost all of Mississippi, half of Alabama, just about all of Tennessee, except for the northwest and northeast, and extending into Kentucky. Now, there'll be a marginal risk that you can sort of imagine that will be um, enveloped around all that. And, you know, not impossible that we could see an enhanced risk. When we go into the short range, tomorrow will be day three. We'll have to wait another day to see if there's going to be tornado risk, but I suspect that we are going to see the potential for some tornado risk and for severe thunderstorms. And this is going to be Sunday into Monday. Precip wise, much of what's in the east is front end loaded, sort of half to three quarters. A few places a little bit higher across New England, back down through New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania and eastern New York, the eastern portion of New York State. Mostly light precip in the mid-Atlantic down to Florida. Very less than that in Florida. We have half to three quarters in the Ohio and Tennessee Valley and down into the Gulf states, and some heavier precip of up to a few inches or more being indicated for the Pacific Northwest. Lou Arizio, thank you so much for hitting the tip jar tonight. Thank you for hitting Super Chat.
Thank you, Lou.
And so here's eh, got. I guess we could call it a coldish pattern overall over the next couple of weeks. And I mentioned this last night. If we take a look at what's going on in the stratosphere, now this is a time of year where the polar vortex, the big upper low, weakens, and usually by the time we get to mid or late April, it's gone. Well, it's happening much earlier this time around, and that actually does have implications because there will be, areas of cold air up to the north that are going to wind up getting displaced to the south. At least if you look at how this polar vortex just kind of shifts to between England and Newfoundland and drops southward, well south of Greenland, while an upper high takes over, which is normally what you do see. But again, I would say we're probably about 3 weeks early with this as far as the breakdown is concerned. And then that upper low winds up going retrograding back through New England and eventually into southern Canada. So this is a setup that uh, probably means that we are going to be seeing shots of cold air coming down. And I'm sure we're going to see model runs that we already have, and we'll probably see some more of them, where occasionally it's going to try to hint that maybe there'll be some sort of early spring type snowfall for parts of the Northeast. I'll just say right off the bat that I think you're going to really need things to come together almost perfectly for anything to happen. Now, in upstate New York, in northern New York, and northern New England, it may be a different story, but for everybody else, I think you're just going to have to, really have an almost perfect setup. Not only getting cold air in, but you got to hold it in for at least a little while. And then, of course, you start to run into the issue of the fact that uh, daytime snowfall is going to have a tough time to stick, given the strengthening sun angle. So if you're a snow lover, you're going to want the precipitation to fall at night. So that's another thing you got to work into the equation. But we don't have such issues as far as the forecast is concerned through the weekend and into next week. Joe mentioned, about the front going by, the low that develops on it, the gradient tightening late tonight into Friday morning. That is all going to happen. Saturday, there's a cold front that drops down from Canada through the Great Lakes, and you see it there with a little area of snow in the northern lakes that moves into upstate New York. I threw in the chance that there could be a scattered rain shower during the afternoon on Saturday in one or two places. I think the best chances of that are probably to the north rather than to the south. Meanwhile, we've got energy coming into the northwest with a low that's going to move into the plains, and you see it here come Saturday night and Sunday morning. There'll probably be some snow in the Dakotas and Minnesota with this. And the trailing cold front is going to set off potentially severe weather, as the SPC has indicated. And you can see the GFS has from West Virginia southwestward into Louisiana. That's where you've got your cold front and the risk for some showers and storms. We may get into a little bit of rain Sunday night into Monday afternoon, maybe a little bit of snow up in northern New York and in northern New England. And that goes out and it turns colder behind it. Remember, colder is in quotes now, because colder this time of year would mean that temperatures could just be in the 40s by day. And that would be considered cold because at the end of the month, the average high, uh, most of the average highs are now going to be getting up into the low and middle 50s. So that'll move along. And then as we go through next week, there are going to be these disturbances that are going to be coming in from the Pacific and then driving southeastward. And at least on some runs, you're going to see it try to make something when they approach the East Coast. On other runs, you're not. This 18Z run is one of those runs where you're not going to see it. Just basically cold fronts with shots of cold air that go in and come out, and then you get another system, and then after it's colder again, and on and on and on it goes. So I'm not seeing anything that points to nor'easter type activity. The pattern is probably just not dynamic enough. And I think, Joe, you still have that problem that we basically had all winter, which is the fact that the jet in the Atlantic is, instead of let me bring it up before we come back to you. Sorry for the black screen there. But I'm going to bring up just to take a look at it. The Atlantic, and we'll put in the 500 millibar here. Okay. It's not quite a ruler like it was, but it's still, normally when you start to see nor'easters, it's because you get these cutoff lows that form and then drop off the East Coast in one way or another. And that doesn't appear to be the case. It's not, it's not the ruler that we saw from North Carolina to Spain, but on the other hand, these troughs in the east, they come in one after another, one after another. They drop down, they lift out, then they drop back down again. Um, Again, shots of cold air, but at this moment, I don't see anything, anything that suggests that there's going to be some sort of last minute early spring type snowfall. Not saying
And,
it can't happen. I'm just saying I'm not seeing it.
and Bobby Livingsworth was asking on the chat board what was my winter outlook back in November. And quite frankly, I don't remember putting out a winter outlook.
No, you didn't.
I don't recall doing that sort of thing. I mean, if you want a
Right.
winter outlook, you can try the Farmer's Almanac or the Old Farmer's Almanac, or um, even Jim Witt, who puts out his long range weather calendar. But I'm not sure. I'm not into doing long range projections, as I know you are too, Joe.
Well, I mean, the only projection I made was the fact that I said back in November, in October, November, since everybody was jumping on the side of a warm winter in the eastern part of the United States, that just on the standpoint of being contrarian, I'll take I took the other side of that trade, and I turned out to be right. So, and that's sheerly by just wanting to be contrarian. So Tom Contino, I don't do long range, and I'm not going to do long range. What's the point? What is the point? Okay, I mean, so what? And then say something in October or November, and that really has no relevance. Most of the long range forecasts were wrong this year. Uh, so what's the point? We go out a week, we go out 2 weeks, we try to figure out if there's something, a threat maybe in the medium range. That I'll do, but I can't be,
I
I can't
mean,
focus energy 2 months, 2 or 3 months
I mean,
ahead of
here,
time. It's a waste of time.
here I am, more often than not. And if I'm, lying here, I challenge anybody to go on the chat board right now and say you're lying. You ever said? I've said more times than not.
Nice.
No, no, no. But what I'm going to say is, I've said more times that if I were back on television, the one thing that I would go to the executive producer or the news director and say, we ought to stop doing the 7 day outlook. Let's do the five. Let's go back and do the 5 day. Let's not start doing 7 or even 10 day outlooks. I honestly believe that once you get past 5 days, the accuracy really starts to go down quite
Right.
a bit. You're really doing everybody a non-service by putting a 10 day outlook out. So to anybody who's saying like, Joe Rayo, why didn't you put out a long range forecast for the winter? I mean, here I am saying we should just reduce the extended time on TV weathercasts. You think I'm actually going to go and try to forecast something like 2 3 months in advance? Forget about it.
I'm okay with 7. I'm okay with 7. Beyond that, no, I'm not okay with. All right with 7. You want to go to 5, I know. You want to go to a rotary phone. I get it.
I, yes,
But I'm okay with I'm okay with 7. But
I was talking with somebody on Facebook yesterday, um, who I've known for a number of years. I'm going to meet in person finally early next month. Peter King at CBS Network Radio News, and I was talking about the fact that I was on WPAT radio in New York here from 1984 to 1995. And at one point, that radio station, WPAT, which was the elevator music station, was the number one station in New York. I mean, more people were listening to that. An old demographic, I might add, but it had the highest ratings. And I said to Peter, I said, I lament the fact that New York no longer has a beautiful music station anymore. And he came back and said, Joe, where have you been? He said, beautiful music radio died 20 or 30 years ago. And probably most of the people who used to listen are dead now, too. It's radio for dead people. And of course, here I am saying that I used to love listening to beautiful music, instrumental stations, Montevani and that kind of stuff, and it no longer exists. It no longer exists.
You know,
So add that to my wanting to use rotary phones, Joe, and wanting to cut back on the extended forecast from 7 to 5 days. I think I'm an old fogey. I'm living in the past. What else can I
wait,
possibly
you know,
say?
you now reminded me, and I meant to tell you this yesterday because I was reading this, and frankly, I was appalled. And when I tell you this, you're going to be appalled. But apparently, uh, Warner Brothers, okay, who owns, they own, among other things, they own HBO and Max Channel, neither of which I have. I don't even know if HBO is still there as a separate entity or how they have it marketed. But apparently, they have pulled all the Warner Brothers Bugs Bunny cartoons and their related characters. They have pulled them out of their library and off the air, or either they've pulled it or they're planning to pull them. But they are taking the whole library and just putting them out, taking them off the air. And their reason behind it is that they come from another time and nobody watches them. They watch the the recent horrible movies that they've made, these Bugs Bunny movies and the uh, those kind of things. But as far as the old cartoons are concerned, they're taking them away. Now they may bring them back one day, but that's what I was reading.
If you, any of you who have Me TV, you can still rely on Saturday morning, and that's the time that we used to watch, right?
Hmm.
Saturday morning at 9 a.m., you get a chance to see for 1 hour the old Bugs Bunny show, starting off with, Bugs and Daffy on stage singing Overture,
Sure,
the
dim the
light.
lights.
Yeah,
This is it. We hit the heights.
so
Um,
if you're still into Bugs Bunny, at least you can still. And I read somewhere where cartoons like Speedy Gonzales are considered to be politically incorrect. You could still see Speedy from time to time on Me TV.
but you
So
know what? I was also reading in that article that the Speedy Gonzales cartoon is actually quite popular in Mexico.
really,
Yeah. Yeah, I
oh
mean, they
well,
kind of got the article. I got to see if I can find it and I'll send it to you. But it was a long article, and the article talked about the fact that some of these cartoons are, quote unquote, politically incorrect. Yet in some other countries where they run, they're not only perfectly correct, but they're actually quite popular. So you know what? That's I sh- I shake my head when it comes to that sort of stuff because
all right, Clancy, take the boys and surround the house. All right, Rabbit, where's Rocky? Where's he hiding? He's not in that stove.
yeah.
Ho
I see them
ho!
on. I see bits on reels, on reels on Facebook. They'll have cartoon clips from them,
I
and
mean, there's
occasionally
one
even the whole cartoon.
card. I mean, like that cartoon is considered politically incorrect because Bug stuffs Rocky and Boss in a stove and
Right,
turns the gas on, and then throws a match in there and blows them up or whatever. And then there's another one where Daffy Duck trying to top Bugs Bunny on stage. He's always
right, and
getting
he puts like
frickin'
basically,
and he drinks uranium 238 nitroglycerin, and then he takes a match and puts it in his mouth,
right.
blows it up. Oh, you can't show that to children or whatever. Why? Children are actually going to get a bottle of nitroglycerin and try to chug it down or whatever. I mean, it's crazy. We didn't do it. Why would they?
Well,
and,
those
and if anything,
cartoons.
if anything, the kids of today are probably so more technically inclined than we were when we were 8 and 10 years old.
Right.
But that's the way of the world, I guess.
Well, those cartoons were, I mean, originally they made those cartoons to run in the movie theaters before they would show the main feature. So they were
Right,
actually, and when you really look, I mean, when you look at them, it doesn't, take a brain to realize that they are written for adults. They were never written for children. Those were never children's cartoons. They were always adult cartoons with all the
right,
double entendres and all the rest of it, and Bugs Bunny and
exactly.
drag and that kind of thing.
I'd
So
like to see some. I'd like to see something nice in a pair of bedroom slippers. Confidentially, so would I.
right,
you know,
exactly,
you know. And Christopedia brings up a good point. If it is so politically incorrect to see Daffy Duck, or Bugs Bunny stuff somebody in a stove, turn the gas on and blow them up by throwing a match in it, then why do we still have Roadrunner proliferating? The Roadrunner showing the coyote falling off a cliff or getting a safe dropped on him, and stuff like that. That apparently is correct, but not
right.
not the Bugs Bunny stuff. I don't know.
Suzanne DeAngelis, many people have argued that SpongeBob SquarePants is really an adult cartoon, and I've watched enough of them over the years that yeah, it probably is. Hey, it most probably is, and we'll leave it at that. So, any plans for the weekend?
Um, no, actually, there's nothing really on the agenda of any significance. So it'll
Yeah,
be
no,
hope.
I don't. I, oh, I do have tomorrow's poker night, so I am playing poker tomorrow night.
Okay,
So
that's
there's
good.
that. Um, I don't have any specific plans for Saturday or Sunday, but as I say that, I've been just racking my head trying to remember uh, that did I plan something for the weekend and I just can't remember. It's sort of nagging me that I have forgotten about something, but if I have, I will find out soon enough. But as far as I know, it's a quiet weekend. Is poker night an event that's held in your town? No, no, that's poker night with my friends. We get together once a month, and then we all take turns as to whose house it is. So, um, this next time around, it's going to be here at my house. So yeah, that's just my friends. We get together and just play poker for about 3 or 4 hours and enjoy ourselves. So there you go.
Yes.
All right, I am going straight to bed because I am still feeling, a little bit of the effects of the anesthesia. By the way, man, before we go, I just want to ask you: Do you, when you get knocked out, do you dream? Do people come and talk to you while you're out cold?
No, in fact, the last couple of times they knocked me out for a colonoscopy, I went right out, and then they woke me right up again. So
Yeah, that's
I
me too. I didn't. I asked them afterward, as I was coming out, and I was asking, because my experience every time I've been under, which is twice for surgeries, 3 times for surgeries, and um, 3 or 4 times for colonoscopy. Every single time, it's just like I'm asleep and then I'm awake, and I have no recollection. I don't dream, but apparently some people do. So I did ask about that today. If people, do some people like dream when they're
I've never had a
I've never have.
I've never had any kind of a dream or anything when they've knocked me out. So
Yeah, I was just kind of curious. Okay, I was hoping I would because I always like it when dead people come and say hi while while you're asleep. But no matter. Anyhow, everybody have a great night and a great weekend. Once again, we had uh, one super chat hit tonight, and it was from Lou Arizio. Thank you so much, Louis, and thanks everybody for being here. So we'll be back Sunday at 7:35 p.m. Nighty night.
good night, folks.